Okay, so we're in week 3 now, so let's go to class materials for summer. We'll do our arrow, click week 3, and then we're at the end of week 3, so we're at Thursday. We'll talk about Google Forms, and then we'll talk about the midterm project. For Google Forms, if you'd like to follow along, if you click that nice little link here, then you'll have an outline to the notes. So here's an outline to the things I'll be discussing in Google Forms. Notice at the end there is no class activity for this particular topic. Also, there's a link to a survey. So as part of this lesson, I'm going to need you to take this survey. So just click that link and then answer the questions and then complete the second page and then submit the survey. All right, so let's talk about Google Forms. So to open up a Google form, we need to do it from our drive. And so now here's where I have my Google Forms. So however you organize your Google Drive, when you go to New, and we have to go to the More tab, we go to Google Forms. As soon as I click this, it's going to put it right where I am in my Google Drive. Okay, so when I create new things, it's not going to put them anywhere it feels like. It's going to put them right where I am at that time in my Google Drive. And it's just letting me know that I'm in a folder that has sharing permission. So when I create something, it also has that sharing permission. So it's a nice little tip. All right, now here's your Google form. So let's talk about the header first. So how to change the actual title. We can change the title in 2 ways. Up here or actually on the form. And when we change the titles, let's just call this class survey. It'll change both. All right, so you'll see, and sometimes it's a little finicky. You'll see if I click here, it actually changes the name. So if I change one, it changes them both. They're linked. All right, so if we go across the buttons now, so here's this little puzzle piece that says add-ons. So add-ons are special programs that other people have written that actually work with Google Forms. So they do special, unique things in Google Forms. And we'll talk about add-ons later in this class. All right, the next button's our color palette. So we can change our colors. And when I say our colors, you can see it's this banner and kind of this hue down below. So if I click pink, you can see it changes the banner to pink, and then this hue is pink down below. I can also change the themes. Right? So here are broad categories of themes. And in these categories, I have different themes. You'll see when I click a theme, if I click Jelly Bean, then it changes my banner. So now I have jelly beans, and I kind of have a orangish hue down below. All right? And then to get different options, just click, the headings, and you'll see dozens and dozens and dozens. You can also upload your own photos. So if you want your banner or your theme to be your photos, then just upload some photos. Okay. I'm going to change it back to purple. Jelly beans aren't my deal. Okay, now the eye. So this is a preview. So you click this, you'll notice Google opens a whole new tab. And this is the survey that people will see when they click on your link. So it lets you see how other people will actually view your survey. Our next one, so anytime you see a gear in Google, that means settings. So we have a few settings, so we can click, and these are all toggle buttons on and off. Right? So I can click, and I can make it so that you can only submit one response to the survey. The thing you have to remember, if you do that though, they have to log in with their Gmail account. Okay, so it's fine to require only one, but they have to have a Gmail account and they have to log in with that. Okay, once they actually submit the page, you can have a nice little response for them, right? So you can type out a message. So, thanks for doing my survey. Well done, whatever you want. Okay, but you can actually give them a nice message when they submit your survey. So these next 3 are for the respondent, right? When they actually submit the survey, this is what they'll see. So they'll have an option. If I click this, they'll have a nice little button where they can submit another response. If I click this, they'll have a button where they can edit their response. And if I click this one, they'll have a button where they can see the summary of all the responses. All right, and again, these are just toggled on and off. Okay, these are the presentation options. So these are options that respondents will see when they're actually taking the survey. So if I click, I can show them a progress bar, or I can shuffle the question order. Okay, so those are all my nice little settings. Let's do submit another response, and then show progress bar. Then I'll hit save. Now I'm at send. So send is just like the share link, the share button on our Google Docs and our Google Slides. This is how I can get people my actual survey. So first thing I can do is I can email them. So I just hit their, type in their email address right here. Subject, I can do a message. I can toggle on or off that I can include this survey in the actual email. So if I click this, then they're going to actually have a survey in their email, not a link. It's going to be the whole survey. Okay, here's our link button. So if I want to embed this on my webpage like I did, here's the link I'll use. We're not going to type these in. We're going to cut and paste, so the length isn't that big deal. But if you wanted a shortened version, there you go. Okay, like I said, we're just going to cut and paste. All right, so before we go on to the next part, I need to be clear about this. This is the link to what I call the live version. Okay, so this link right here is the link to this version that people will see when they take the actual survey. Okay, this link, let's go back, right here is different than this link here. So here's my class survey. You can see it put in the folder that I had open. If I click this link, right, this link is different. Okay, this link is the link to the form that people can edit. All right, so this is the form that you can edit. This link is the form that people will take. Okay, this is the live form. Those are two different links, and it gets confusing. All right, so if I wanted to embed it in my website, I use this link. We'll go back to send here. Then lastly, down at the bottom, you can add collaborators, and you can see this is our sharing settings. Right, so just like our Google Docs and Google Slides. Here I can do one person at a time. I can change the whole world. Right? And then here you can see it's all edit. I can't change this because it's a survey. I want people to be able to edit it. I want people to be able to take the survey. All right, so let's get out of that. Done. The last thing are the three dots. Whenever you see three dots in Google, it means you can do more stuff. You can make a copy of the survey. You can move the survey to a folder. You can trash the whole survey. You can get a pre-filled link. So if you do a pre-filled link on your questions, you can actually fill out some parts of each question and then hit submit. And when people see the survey, they're going to already have pieces that you filled out. So they won't get a blank survey. They'll get a survey that's pre-filled with whatever you decided to pre-fill. Okay, let's go back to the dots. We can print the survey. We can add collaborators. This is just like we did when we went to the send. So you can see it's the same kind of sharing options that we've always had. Okay, so again, that's two different ways we could have done that. We hit send and add collaborators, or we can do the three dots and add collaborators. Okay, script editors. So we can actually change the code, the programming code, and then here are add-ons again. So this add-on and that puzzle piece button are the same thing. All right, so those are our headers and our toolbars. And let's go into the form tabs. So you'll see we have two different tabs here. One are my questions. So when I get more questions, you'll see them all. Or I can switch over to responses. So this lets me know how many responses I have to my survey. So I have 0 right now because none of you have taken the survey. This green part is actually the spreadsheet. When I click this, it'll create a Google Sheet. And in the Google Sheet, it's where it'll house all the data. It'll house all the people's names, all the answers to the questions, the time, the date they took, everything. Okay, and we'll get to that. All right, 3 buttons, right? I can always do more stuff. So you can get email notifications for new responses. So anytime someone does something new, it'll send you an email. You can select response destination. You can't unlink form just yet. I'll show you how we can do that. You can download responses. So this will put it on your desktop, or you can delete all responses, or you can print all responses, right? So I don't have any responses, so that's why I can't unlink or print, because I don't have anything. Okay, to unlink, you could also do this. So I can toggle this on and off. So now I'm not accepting responses, which means when someone clicks the survey, it'll deny them access. It'll say, it literally will say the survey is not accepting responses. So if I click on, then I'm good. And it gives me a nice message here. It's waiting for responses. Okay, so that's how I view and look at my responses. Okay, so let's do our questions. So now when we get to our questions, you'll see on the right here I have 5 buttons. The first button is to add a question. So if I want to add a new question, I hit this button. And you can see now I have a whole new question. All right, and we'll get to what all this means. The second button, I can actually add a title or a description. So if I add a title here, put this is a title. All right, and I can do a description. This is still a title. Okay, so then you can see I have this, now it's kind of text. So this TT is a way that I can put text in places. All right. Okay, I don't want that, so I'm going to delete that. The next thing is here's where I can add an image. So if you have pictures and things you want to add, you have choices. You can take a snapshot, right? So you can screenshot your computer. You can do a URL, so if you find a picture that actually has a URL address, you can go to your album. You can click it off the drive. You can search for one, or if you already have one, just like anything in Google, you can drag and drop. Okay, and we'll go through how to insert an image in our questions. So add a video. You can see it's the same idea. Okay, I can do YouTube, right? So if I want to search YouTube, I can do that. Or if I have the actual URL address. So my videos may be on YouTube. I already know the URL address because I put them as links to the website. I just do that same link here. I just put that same URL here. Okay, and then I'll put in a video. And then lastly, we'll add another section. So now you'll see I have section 1 and then section 2. All right, so those are our side buttons. Okay, so let's look at our first section here. You'll notice we have 2 little kind of symbols here. The first one are these kind of double arrows. So if I click this, it'll hide the responses to my question. So here's an untitled question, and that's option 1. When I click this, you'll see I don't have the option 1. It hides the responses, so I just see the questions. The second one now just means more, right? So I can duplicate this whole section or I can delete this section. All right, so let's do questions. So let's go over all the different types of questions we can add. So here's my class survey. I'm gonna do a little description here. Do this. Let's write example survey used in class. And that's my description. Okay, I have my first question here. And then the title is actually the question. So you're not titling the question, you're actually writing the question here. Okay, and before we get there, notice that when I click on these questions, and I can go back and forth, right? I just click in the open area. I always see these 6 dots. If I were to grab those 6 dots and click my mouse and hold the button, I can actually move questions up and down. Okay, so that's how we can move questions. Okay, then the next one is a drop-down menu. So here are all the questions that I can actually ask. Right, so I can do a short answer, a paragraph, multiple choice, checkbox, drop-down, linear scale, multiple grid, date, or time. Okay, let's start with short answer. And every time I click a type, my options change. So let's do short answer. Let me just write short answer question. So we know when we look at it, you can see I only have a short answer option here. So they'll type in a short answer. Okay, and then I have some more options. Here I can duplicate this question. I can delete this question. I can make this question required, which means they can't move on to the next page or submit until they fill in all the required questions. And then just like anything else, my 3 dots, I have more stuff. I can show a description or I can do a data validation. Okay, if I do a description, I get a nice little description tab here. If I do data validation, then what it'll do is it'll check on the actual short answer, what it looks like. Okay, if I want it to be a number, then if they don't type a number, the Google Forms will prompt them, say, hey, look, we expect a number, you're doing something weird. Okay, I can do text, right? And I can do just a regular expression. Okay, so if we do number, I need a number, maybe I can do greater than, I can do less than, equal to, and then I put the number here. All right, so let's say whatever my question is, how many days are in the week, right? And I need a number that's greater than 5. All right, and then here's the message I'll send. If it checks and looks and it's not a number, then I can just send this message, hey, look, you're not putting in a number. If I do text, all right, contains, doesn't contain, this is where it's nice for email address. If you put a question where, what's your email? And then you want to make sure that they actually type in a valid email. So we could type not a valid email address. Right, so if they start typing and then the system does an @ symbol or maybe a .com or .edu, then it won't let them submit their show response. Okay, so that's how we can actually validate the text. All right, let's add a second question. Now let's go to paragraph. See, paragraph's the exact same thing. Here's my question. I have a longer answer now. Right, so here it's just going to be a longer text box form. I have the same options here: duplicate, delete, require, or description and data validation. Now you'll see if I want, I can grab the 6 dots, either one, and I can move the questions. Now the paragraph's up top, right? And now the paragraph's at the bottom. Right, so that's how I can move things. All right, let's go to our next set. Here we have multiple choice. So multiple choice. Now we have options. It's multiple choice. So here's where I click. I'll do answer 1. Okay, so I can add option, and then I'll do answer 2. I can add option, I can do answer 3. So depending on how many actual distractors you have in your multiple choice, then you just add as many as you want. You just keep doing that. Okay, if you don't like an answer, you can always click it and get rid of it. So click the X. You'll see if I go to the left, I get my 6 dots again. This time they're vertical. Right? And I can move answers. Okay, so I can move distractors. And you'll see again, duplicate, delete, I can require the question, or I can get more options. Okay, and now in this case, I have description, I have go to, and I have shuffle. So I can shuffle the order. And so now let's actually talk about what this go to. So on multiple choice, based on how they answer something, I can actually send them places. So I can send them to the next section. I can send them specifically to different sections. So here's section 1 or the section 2 below. Or I can have them just submit the form. So this works out well for questions that, do you like dogs? And if you put no, then if the rest of my survey is about dogs, then I don't want you to continue. So maybe I go to the next page, the next section, which is about cats. Then I'll put, do you like cats? And I'll have yes or no for options. If you put yes, then you can continue on the survey. If no, then maybe I just have you stop altogether. Okay, so it's a nice way to kind of get them to navigate different portions. Okay, so let's do that. Let's change this. If they say, whatever my question is, let's say they say yes, and they say no. If they say yes, let's move them to section 2. If they say no, then we'll just continue to not the next section. Let's add a third question here. So let's do checkbox. And you can see checkbox is very similar to multiple choice, except now they can check more than one response. Okay, and you can see again, here's answer 1. And I do another option, here's answer 2, just like the multiple choice. And here's all my good stuff, right? Just like everything else. And here are my 3 dots. So description, now I can have data validation, and I can shuffle the order. Okay, so now that we have another question, let's go back to multiple choice and let's see the options. So what I'd like is if they put no, they can continue on with the survey. And if I click this, since we have another question, you can see that there isn't an option to continue on to the next question. So what this means is if you do the go to section option, you need to make this question last because it won't let them go to the checkbox because whatever their answer is, they're going to go either to section 2 or the next section, which happens to be section 2. So that's a nice little note to make. If you're going to do a go-to, then that question needs to be last. All right, so a nice little thing. So here are our checkboxes. We can check as many as we like. Let's do our next question. Let's do drop-down. So here we have a nice drop-down menu. And here's our questions. Let's do drop-down. And then option 1, I'm not going to put answers anymore. Option 2, you get the point. All our same stuff, our 3 dots. So we can do description, we can do the go-to again, or we can shuffle. All right, and then let's do another question. Let's do our linear scale. So these are our Likert scales. All right, so we'll do linear scale. And here's what we can do, 1 to, how much do you like something, 1 to 5. So let's say I want to go from 1 all the way to, I don't know, I have all these options. Let's just make it 3. And so this would be, how much did you like this survey, right, from 1 to 3. Where 1 is, now you gotta let people know what 1 is. 1 is, didn't like it all. And then 3 will be liked very much. Okay, so you gotta let people know what your scale is. And then you'll see when they actually see the question, it will be didn't like it all, 1, all the way to liked very much, 3. Let's add a new question. Let's go to multiple grid choice. So now it's kind of a 2 by 2 linear scale. So my question, let's do the grid. And so now I'll have rows and columns. So let's do a 2 by 2. So I'll add row 1, row 2, column 1, column 2. Then you'll see when I pull this up what it'll look like. Here's duplicate, here's delete, all that good stuff. Require. This now requires 1 response per row. Okay, this will make sure they just do 1 item per row. Okay, you'll see our 3 dots. I can do the description again. Okay, and I can limit 1 response per column. Here's 1 per row and then 1 per column. Okay, and I can shuffle the order. And let's do our next question. So let's actually do this. So let's actually add our next question in the untitled section. I'll call this section 2. I'll add a question. Now we're the grid, so we're at date. So let's do a date. And so question, date, and then you can see they can actually type in the date. Okay, and then I have my exact same options, my 3 dots now. I can include the time, I can include the year. Okay, so if I do all this, you can see I have date and time. Okay, and if I toggle off the year, it will take away the year. Okay, and then our last question will be our time. So here's our time question. And you can see here's the time. So same stuff. And then time, and I can do duration, so how long it took. All right, so let's do time. And then that's it. So those are all the questions that we can actually add. If we go to preview, you can see what these all look like. So short answer, I just have a space where I can type in a short answer. All right. It's supposed to be an email address, so again, it's telling me this is my validation. So it's telling me, hey, look, that's not an email address, and that's what I typed. Okay, I have my nice paragraph, so I can just type whatever I want in here. All right, same thing. I have my check boxes, so I can do, 1 or more. I have my drop down, so now it's kind of like our multiple choice, but I do it through a drop down. I have my Likert scale, my linear scale, so maybe I'm neutral. I have my grid, and so now here's my grid, right? So whatever row 1 was, I'm only allowed to select one of these, and lets me know that's true, but I can select more in a row. And we'll do our multiple choice, say yes. And you can see here's the progress bar. So it doesn't tell me the number of questions, it tells me how much percent I've completed. So let's put yes. And now here's what happens when things are required and you don't fill them in. It lets you know that this is required, so highlights it in this pink. So let's do me@gmail.com. Okay, you can see my error of this is an email address goes away. And then I'll go to next. And then here you see I'm at section 2. And then here I can just type in the day and the month. So here's 06/02 and the time 10:46. Okay, and then the same thing for the time. I can change AM, PM. So the time is just the same as I did up there. And then that's it. You can look, it says, look, you're 100% complete. And you'll notice this 100% and 50%, that was based on sections, not questions. So I'm on the last section, so that's why it says 100%. Okay, so it doesn't go by questions. And I hit submit. Okay, and it says your response has been recorded. So here's the link to submit another response. So if I click that, you can see I'm right back to my survey. Right? And once again, where did that come from? If we go to settings, that was this, submit another response. That's why that link was there. So those are all the questions you can enter and how you can enter them. Right? And now you'll see I actually have a response. Right? So I'll go to responses and it'll list out my answers. So for each one, and if I had more than one of these, this would be a little bit more complicated. Okay, so here's a summary of all the short answers I have. So if there were 10 responses, I'd have 10 lines here of all the different email addresses. Okay, so here's the summary. And the drop down gives me a nice, pie chart. There's a nice bar graph, okay, all that good stuff. So the first part of this is the summary, and it'll give me the summary of all the responses. The second one is individual. So I'll actually get the survey and how people answered it individually. And then to scroll through the different individuals, I just click these arrows. So right now I'm 1 of 1, but if I had 10 of these, I'd be 1 of 10. So I can click through the arrows, or it looks like I can just click these arrows to go up and down. Okay, I can print an individual survey response, or I can delete this response. All right, and then let's look at the Google Sheet. So let's create a spreadsheet. You want to create a new spreadsheet or an existing spreadsheet? Depends on what you're using this for. Okay, so we'll do a new one. I'll hit create. And you can see here is the Google Sheets, right? And we'll talk about Google Sheets later, but it gives me when they took it. It gives me their answers. So here are all the answers to my questions. Short answer, multiple choice, and then the time. Okay, so it gives me the actual time they took it and then all their answers. And then if you look in my Google Drive, it put this right next to my survey. Okay, so here's my class survey and here are my responses. So it'll automatically generate these responses and put them right where your survey was. Okay, so that's pretty much the gist of Google Forms, but I tell you what, let's do our last thing. Let's actually insert a picture, right? So I said we'd do that. So I want to edit my form. I'm on responses right now. Okay, and how did I know that? So you can kind of see individual. It looks like this is my form. I don't have those toolbar buttons here, so I know I'm not in my form. I go to question, and now there they are, so I know I'm in my form. So let's do this. So let's actually insert an image. To insert an image, let's go back to my website. Right, let's go to week 2. Let's go to actually week 1, because I should have a dog picture here somewhere. Activities, there you go. So dog picture. So let's see what this is. There you go. And then here's the URL address. So remember I have options. When I insert an image, I can just take a snapshot. I can do by URL, or I can go to my drive, or I can just drag and drop. I'm going to do URL. I'm going to paste this, and then there's my picture. Okay, so there's multiple ways to get a picture onto your form. Hit select, and there you go. So you can see it now. Here's my image. And again, I have the 6 dots, so I can move this. But let's do this. So here it's in section 2. All right, let's say I want to move it to the top. So I'm still in section 2, but the other questions are below. Let's say I want to put it in question 1. So I grab, and I actually can go across sections here. All right, so now you'll see it's actually in the first class survey section. All right. And I can put a title here, I can duplicate, I can trash, I have more, right? Hover text. Right, so if I click that, here's just a description, it looks like. Let's do this. So let's do dog title or dog picture. And now here I can align it, so I can go left, I can make it center or to the right. Okay, I can actually change the picture itself. So if I do that, you can see I can drag another picture in here. And if I click the picture, I can actually size it. So that's how I can size my picture. Okay, let's go to preview because let's see what this hover text is. It's even called hover text. So let's actually go to preview. So let's go to the eye. I'll scroll down to the picture. You can see that the hover text I wrote, which was hover text, isn't anywhere in this picture. But if I actually hover on the picture, then it shows up. So that's what hover text is. Right? It's kind of, if they linger long enough, it'll give them a little message. So that's, in a nutshell, Google Forms. Okay, so let's go to your Google Form challenge then. So let's get rid of some of these tabs. I don't need the form anymore. So let's go to week, right? And make sure before you're finished, you actually take the survey. So that's one of your assignments, is to take the survey, right? And that's this link above. Okay, and then your actual challenge, so Google Forms. So there are two parts here. So part one, I want you to create a survey, right? Obviously using Google Forms. The survey topic can be anything you want, okay? But just make sure it's school appropriate. But it has to include this. It's got to include your name as the survey. Make sure I can identify you when I look at your survey. Okay, you got to have some type of theme, pick on anything you want, and you need to include all the questions. And then short answer, make sure this question has a numeric response, and let's do a validation for it. So let's do this. So include a text validation. All right. And that little bit there just kind of shows you the power of Google Apps. So I'm in a Google Doc right now, and I was able to change it actually in real time. Okay, and now it'll be saved in my drive wherever it was automatically. All right, do a paragraph, do all this good stuff. Your multiple choice grid, you can do however many you want. How many rows and columns does make a difference. Okay, I want you to include 2 sections. Create the title for the second section. Right? Include the description of your second section. And make the second section accessible through the final survey question, right, of the first section. All right, so what I want you to do is, in the section before, I want you to do the go-to, and based on their answer to that question, they'll send them to this section. And then create an image, any image you want. Okay, and then I want sharing, so I want you to share your Google form with me. So my Gmail, right, give me permission to edit. So I want you to share the form with me. Okay, this isn't the live link. I want you to go to your Google Drive and then share that link with me. Okay, and then I also want you to email the form to each person. And now when you email, you're going to email the actual preview link. Okay, so this one, let's share the Google Drive link. Okay, and on the second one, share the live link. And I get it from that send button. So now on your website, I want you to create a new navigation bar named Google Forms. I want you to put a link to your live survey under this navigation bar. And I also want you to put a link to your Google Drive survey under this navigation bar. All right. Since it came first in the description, I'll put it first there. All right, so I want both. I want the live survey link, and then I want the actual Google Drive link. I want them both. Okay, so part 2, you're going to complete each of your peer surveys. I have this to be completed at the beginning of next class, which is when it's due, but if you could do it as soon as possible because your peers actually need the responses to generate their Google Sheets. Okay, so if you could just do it as quickly as you can. Once you have responses, you can just generate your Google Sheet. You don't have to really wait for everybody. Okay, and then how are you going to complete each peer survey? They're going to be emailed to you. Okay, so that's the part of the sharing. You email your Google form to each person. Okay, when you email, if you go to my website, on the left here you'll see peer email and websites. If you click that, here are all the emails for everyone in your class. Okay, and then here are all their websites. Okay, so that's how you'll get their websites and their email. What I would recommend when you do this, if you just highlight this whole thing and copy, right, and then when you go to your form, when it says email, see if you can just paste it to everybody. Right, so you don't have to do one at a time. All right, and after that, once you start getting the responses, then you need to generate a sheet, a Google Sheet. Then I want you to share that sheet with me, again, at the Gmail account, and then give me permission to edit, and also put a link to that sheet under your navigation bar. So under the Google Form navigation bar. And that's your Google Form challenge.